So we are back to back day, and it is Wednesday. It is almost 4 o'clock. I was gonna train last night, which would have been a mistake, I think, because I definitely was not fully rested. I just kind of felt like training, but I'm very glad that I waited. So I'm feeling a lot better now, and I think I might have 180 for 18 today. If I get 18, it is going to be amazing. So let's just get into it and kind of see how the warm-ups feel and go from there. So I'm gonna warm up with 90. This is not, it's my lats and it's also my lower traps. I'm not trying to isolate so much here. I kind of do like a little bit different warm up. I just did 70 for like 6, and then I did 90 for 6, and then I'm gonna do 110 now. And I'm counting this as like my first exposure to the weight. So that's what I call my first set. 70 for 6, 90 for 6, and then 110 for 6. I usually don't warm up like that, but I just kind of did a couple reps for like 3 small increment jumps. Now I'm gonna rest and then do like regular sets. I'm strapping up for the set prior because I just want to make sure it's feeling okay. I don't want it to distract me during my my heaviest set. There's little things that I do that kind of sends my brain a signal to get ready for the top set, and one of those is retying my shoes, even if they're not loose to begin with. Just it gives me that little bit more stability in my head, whether it does anything. I mean, I'm sure my shoes can be, I could probably untie them completely and nothing will change, but just it's all about just getting that mental cue that it's go time. So I'm gonna get on that song, I'm gonna tune in, make this shit happen. Oh, oh, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh. Set wasn't perfect. I gotta replay to see how many I got. So I just checked it out. The video, I got like 16-ish, and then the 17 and 18 were like quarter reps or something like that. It was about the same that I did last week. I'll take it for, I mean, I'm probably a little bit lighter than I was last week. Obviously the weights aren't gonna continue to go up a full rep every single time, every single week. It does take a little bit of a beating on you. And I am sensing a little bit, like I need a little bit more rest potentially. The sets are just so brutal that even 2 days, like if my rest isn't perfect, even with 2 days off after each training session, it still catches up to me. Especially that last, like if I didn't do those last two, it's those last two that really just suck every bit of nervous system out of me. That kind of makes sense. It drains me the most. So, still good. Done on this. Gonna move on to a little bent over row. Oh, also, so as I'm doing this, when I come up, I'm trying to resist. I could come up faster, but in my head I want to let it go, and then I want to kind of almost stop it for a second and let it push into my hand. And I want to deliver that tension into my lat. I mean, that's kind of how I'm thinking of it. So when I get to the top, I'm lifting my shoulder up a little bit to get more of a stretch on the lat. My arm isn't gonna go straight. It'll go up to about right there. And then my shoulder will rise. And then I'm gonna sink my shoulder back down, and I'm gonna drive my elbow down towards my hip and keep it close to me. So that's what I'm thinking of during this exercise. And then the simple goal is just attempt to do as many good reps like that as possible. It might get a little bit, not sloppy, but the form might change a little bit. But the idea is to just keep it as tight as you can keep it until the very end. So that's it there. My back is warmed up. I want to warm up my lower back. So I could just go straight to a 45, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel comfortable to me. So go a quarter, and then I'll just go to 45. My heaviest set is around 175-ish. So I mean, if you're bent over rowing 250, then you could probably just go straight to a 45, and then go 45 and a 25, and then a 45. And that goes for the opposite. If your bent over row is 95 pounds, then start with a bar, and then maybe put on a 10 on each side. Slowly work your way up. You don't need a lot of rest time in between these, so I'm just gonna go straight into this. When it comes to resting in the beginning warm-up sets, these are just feeler sets. So right here, I'm locking into my back, feeling pressure on my feet, bending over, right there. Boom. Now I know. Is even though I'm pretty much just as strong, it's just my body's a little bit beat down. I can just feel it. My desire to lift is just not, it's not super high right now. And since I've been here before, I know it's time to just chill and take time just to recover and then do the process again. So the biggest lesson today for me is that 2 to 3 times a week is the maximum that I can do while training this way, the way I prefer, which is all out, life or death. It's just that's the style of training that I prefer. If, let's say you were to hold a rep in reserve, I don't prefer training like that, but if you like doing that, then you can probably train more often and you won't get as burnt out. But I think you have to enjoy what you're doing. You have to train the way you want. So if you're gonna train like this, then I think Dorian's idea of 6 weeks all out, 2 weeks chilling, take a week off, maybe a deload, whatever. The point is 2 weeks of chilling. I think a week minimum, just to reset and get back. Because before you know it, 3 days goes by, 4 days, 5. All of a sudden, you're back to training all that again. And if you're not fully recovered, then you're gonna fall right back into that deep hole right away. So that is the biggest lesson that I've learned. And the second lesson would be that the body is going to tell you when you are tired and when you need rest. I think I've been lifting since I was 15. 15 I started. 15 years old that summer is when I quit swimming. I was, that was all I did. All I did was swim. That was my biggest, it was everything I put into it. Everything was into swimming. Specifically, the 100-yard breaststroke. That was my event. If there was a 50, it would have been even better. They just didn't have a 50. But I would go all out in the 50, and then I would just die, basically. But I would always be the fastest out of the 50. And then they would come back, and I would try to hold on. But sometimes they would catch me, sometimes not. But those were some good times, man. And so anyway, 15 on, I'm 23 now. About 8 years of lifting. It's taken me about 8 years to kind of figure out how much recovery is a component to this. There was times, 21 summer, where I would train like 2 weeks straight. And I thought I was recovering, but the sessions were actually not as good as I thought looking back. It seemed like they were good, because you get comfortable sometimes with how strong you are. You're like, oh, okay, 275 deadlift for 8 and 10, yeah, it's good. And you forget that you could be at 315 maybe, if you were to recover more. But at that stage, that's what I wanted to do. So there's no regret in doing that. This whole lifting journey is a process of learning what is the perfect split, the perfect rest times. Training hard is the number one thing, but once you can understand that once you send the signal, the healing process takes more time than you think probably, then I think you'll probably progress faster. At least that's what I've experienced myself. The last year is when I've really tried to be disciplined on training like 3 times a week. I go through phases of training more often, and I take a week off because I train too much, and every time I've trained too much, I then need a week off because I'm just too beat from the style of training that I do. So I think 2 to 3 times a week is probably superior to any other training split for me. And I would assume most of you out there for muscle building, for strength building. I think it's not as simple as I train super hard, okay, take one day off. I think if you train really hard, like a big leg day or something, you might need 2 or 3 days just to feel normal again. It's such a traumatic event if you're really pushing hard. If you're not pushing really, really hard, then I don't think it really matters too much. There's nothing wrong with not pushing hard, but if the point is to try and build as much muscle and strength as possible, I think you really got to push it. And just from the last like 6 weeks of really pushing it, my pull downs, I think I was at 180 pounds for 12, and I was able to build it up to 17 with reasonably similar tempo. So I think it just goes to show that all out sets. I mean, I've built some muscle over the last 6 weeks. 6 weeks I've had to have. I mean, there's no way I didn't. So the extra recovery does aid in more muscle tissue, 100%. And I've experienced it. The number one thing is that I've experienced it. So until you experience it, it's not as set in stone. You have to really feel it to see what it does. Some people go to the gym 5 days, 6 days a week. They might make progress, but maybe you'll make more. Maybe I would make more if I was training 5 days a week like that other person. But just from my own experience of trying to do that, I need more recovery. So 2 to 3 days. You don't have to be so on top of everything if you're training twice a week. I mean, you have to be on it, but training every day, it can kind of wear on you mentally a little bit, and I don't even think it's efficient. I think 2 to 3 bursts a week is probably the best for most people out there who have, like, I I don't think most people watching this have families, but I think the point is to just send the signal and then to leave the gym and let the rest kind of aid in the whole process. You don't build muscle in the gym. This is just breaking down muscle tissue. And the moment you realize that is the moment you will unlock new potential, I think. Your genetics are going to dictate most of your progress. I say it all the time. It's like, there's 2 examples. It's like the guy who did everything possible to grow to 7 feet, and he just wasn't dealt the right cards. He was 5'2". He just couldn't make it. That's an extreme example. Another one would be someone who can go out in the sun and they can tan for an hour and they get a perfect tan. And then the other person burns in 5 seconds and they get red and it looks terrible. That's another. The stress from the sun caused 2 completely different adaptations for trying to do the same thing. Some people can only do 1 set all out, and then they need a lot of recovery for that. Someone else, maybe they can get away with doing double the amount of sets and still grow more than the other person. But if the other person tried doing that, they might get even weaker because they need more recovery. So it's not as simple as this person did 8 sets of back, I'm going to do 8 sets, and I'm going to get the same result. Genetics is a huge component. The moment you can understand that, I think you come to you have a little bit of peace with okay, maybe I'm not going to be gigantic, but I can still progress my own body. And there's a reward sensation when you can progress and learn about a perfect split for you. I don't think anybody can really understand your body better than your own self. I know that's a common saying, but I really do think, if someone's saying train 5 days a week, that's the best. But if I train 5 days a week and I just know I'm not progressing as much, I just think I should go back to what I believe is the best for me. People get big in so many different ways. You got Jay Cutler doing 20 sets, and then you got Dorian Yates, or not Dorian Yates. Dorian Yates is, I mean, certain body parts, like I think back he was doing, I mean, is it six, 8 sets, something like that? It's still relatively low, but I mean, I think he was doing 4 sets of chest. I think that's all he was doing. So that's an elite level lifter with performance enhancing drugs. So I think, and I think he was training once a week, body part. So elite level genetics, performance enhancing drugs, and he's training once a week. So I think that's probably enough for this couch rant. I'm gonna call this. So I'm gonna eat this bar. I haven't even taken a bite yet. I can't do two things at once: talking or I'm eating. One or the other. So that's it. I'm gonna rest, and we'll see when I train legs again. I'm just gonna rest until I feel ready. So that's that.